He had a tough loss on Wednesday, so what's next? Well, it's time to talk trades. It's a time-honored tradition to blow up the roster after every loss, and we'll be breaking down possible trades for superstars, role players, and everyone not named Dewayne Dedmon. Plus, what's going on with the All-Star voting, and why isn't Bam Adebayo getting more votes? All that on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your Monday to Friday podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app, thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll get to the lack of all-star voting for Bam Adebayo and some minor moves the Heat can make before the February 9th trade deadline, but let's start with the big name, Zach LaVine. According to Michael Scotto of HoopsHype, if the Bulls make Zach LaVine available before the trade deadline, rival executives across the league have named the Knicks, Lakers, Mavericks, and Heat as possible destinations. David, Zach LaVine, the Miami Heat, what do you think?
It's a big name, right? It's an interesting option. At least in theory, LaVine brings the sort of complementary score that Miami could use. I think, he's always been somewhat miscast throughout his career. He's probably not your primary scorer, your primary player. He's not the one who's going to take you over the hump, but he can complement a great supporting cast like what Miami currently has in terms of Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, potentially Tyler Herro if he's not included in any kind of deal for LaVine. There's also concerns, however, about his salary and some injury history there that sapped some of his athleticism. He's a former slam dunk winner, of course, a great athlete earlier in his career, but not quite as explosive as he once was. He's evolved into a very good three-point shooter, but even that shot has taken a step back over this current season. So there are concerns there. I don't know. I think when you look at any potential trade rumor, right, who does it benefit? Where does the rumor come from? Rival execs, are they hoping that Chicago blows things up and as such can pry a player like LaVine away? I don't know. That's a pretty big risk considering the injury history and the incredible salary. He's set to make $47 million over the next couple of seasons. That's a lot of money. And I'm not sure that LaVine is currently or will ever return to being the type of player that is worth that kind of money. Yeah. So there's big concerns there.
I thought you hit on the key point there. He's been miscast. That's also partly on him. He's been this guy who fancies himself as a superstar, as an all-star scorer, as that guy that you go to throughout the game to lead your team on offense. And there's been signs of him being able to do that. Look, this is a guy 2 years removed from scoring 27 points a game, scored 24 points a game last year for an overachieving kind of plucky Bulls team. Down this year, but starting to trend in the right direction. He had offseason surgery, dealt with some injuries and stuff. He's at 22 points per game. His three-point shooting used to be lights out, to your point. He was shooting 42% 2 years ago from three, 39% last year. He's actually up to 38% this year after a slow start. So Zach LaVine as the shooter, the scorer, I very much believe in. I think he is a five-alarm fire shooter. If he comes off of a screen, if you're a defense, you have to react. You cannot go under, and he's going to burn you every time you do go under. But he's not a leader on offense in the sense that he's not a playmaker. I don't believe in him as a passer. Defensively, he cares about as much as Trae Young does defensively. He's just not as bad as Trae Young because he's not as small as Trae Young. He's super athletic. He's long. There's no reason for him not to be a good defender. So if I'm the Heat or any team, if I'm the Mavericks, and if I'm maybe not so much the Lakers because they're desperate enough that they'll just do it. But if I'm the Knicks, the Mavericks, the Heat, teams that have interest in keeping a championship window open or opening it in the case of the Knicks, I need to be convinced that Zach LaVine, when he enters my program, is going to be invested defensively. He's not going to try to be this ball-dominant guy, and that he can actually be more of an off-ball. Zach LaVine in sort of a Klay Thompson role offensively would be incredible. Like the way that the Nuggets use Michael Porter Jr., just off-ball actions and stuff like that. But you have to pair him with a great playmaker. In Miami, they've got Bam Adebayo. They've got Jimmy Butler. Depending on who's included in the deal, Tyler Herro has made a leap as a playmaker, as you and I have talked about a lot. Kyle Lowry, obviously a great passer. So I think theoretically, I really like the fit. But then when you get down to the brass tacks of this thing, you mentioned the contract. Tyler Herro is the name that I think most people would assume at first blush. You say Zach LaVine, Miami, big name. Miami, what's their kind of trade chip that they've been toying with a little bit? It's Tyler Herro. Would you move Tyler Herro for Zach LaVine? I would not. And that is a non-starter for me. That's not even a debate. I don't even need to have a meeting about it. Tyler Herro at $25 million a year over the next 4 years versus Zach LaVine making almost $50 million with the injury history. I don't think that there's that much of a difference between Tyler Herro and Zach LaVine in a vacuum, not regardless of the contract. And by the way, Herro's ceiling, it feels like, is much higher right now than what Zach LaVine's is, when you put together the fact that Herro's defense is already better than where Zach LaVine is, and that his playmaking, his passing is already better than what Zach LaVine could provide. So I would keep Herro at half the cost, no question. Like I said, I don't even take a meeting with my own front office. We're already like, hey, if they ask for Herro, we say no and we move on. Zach LaVine, that's not the guy that we're willing to trade Tyler Herro for. But if they're willing to have conversations about other players that are not Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro, I'd be willing to take a phone call. Now, whether or not that actually gets you Zach LaVine in a competitive trade market, depending on how competitive it actually gets, that's another question. But to me, those three guys are off the table. What do you think?
I agree 100%. I don't think Herro is the option. And just thinking back about it too, I am a little bit more dubious about the Knicks' interest, considering that his last coach when he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves was Tom Thibodeau, and Tom Thibodeau immediately traded him for Jimmy Butler. So I don't think there's a hot pursuit of LaVine.
I didn't even think of that. That's
Apple.
a good point. Yeah.
If there's a suitor for his services, that's LaVine. I think it probably would be Dallas, because that would be an interesting matchup there in terms of
perfect fit,
a complimentary scorer,
yeah,
knockdown shooter to Luka Doncic and his wild playmaking. As soon as LaVine makes an adjustment, learning how to play alongside Doncic, that's going to be an electric type offense.
That adjustment will be made right away when you enter the Luka universe. Like Luka doesn't get rid of Luka, decides who gets the ball, and he starts with it. That'd be a terrific fit. I don't know what Dallas has to trade. They can't really move any of their draft picks. They have like one future pick like way out there that they can move. I don't know that Chicago is all that interested in something. Maybe they, I don't know. I don't know what the Bulls are looking for. It's like, what is it? Christian Wood and Tim Hardaway Jr. And like, do you want this kind of thing?
Is that a better option than Nikola Jovic and Kyle Lowry, which is probably what it would take? Jovic, a first round pick, and Lowry for LaVine. If you're willing to pay that money, assuming again, look, the cap gymnastics, we can look into that. There's a projected spike, right? An expected spike that will happen when the NBA signs a revised television deal over the next couple of years. And that being the case, the salary cap will probably improve. So, or go higher, not improve, but it will increase to the point where his $47 million cap hit in 27, 28 or 26, 27. I can't remember exactly what it is. Won't seem as significant. As far as the defensive issues.
Well, wait.
You know what?
Let's stop there though. That would be the deal that I would offer. It would be Kyle Lowry, which also potentially cool story. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan reuniting in Chicago. That's a nice story. If you were going to trade Kyle Lowry, way better than trading it. What Bill Simmons had that trade that sent Kyle Lowry to the netherworld of Minnesota. Like, sorry, I actually really like Minneapolis. I regret even saying that, but you get what I mean. For Kyle Lowry, probably not a big fan of Minneapolis. To say that versus sending him to Chicago and doing your guy a solid. And I think Lowry would actually be amenable to saying, you know what, let's reunite in Chicago and let's just, DeMar DeRozan's his best friend in the league, even better than Jimmy Butler. That's not a secret. So whatever. Lowry sending him, cool story. And then it would be Jovic, Max Strus, they would probably just ask for, and I'd be willing to put him in there. Max Strus, Jovic.
Going back home to Chicago.
Yeah. Kyle, all great stories all around. Kyle Lowry, and then probably a first round pick is where I would stop. I don't know that I would even include the second first round pick, given how much LaVine is going to be making. And I hear you with the TV money, but still $50 million is $50 million. And to give up a draft pick in the future that would convey while that TV contract is sort of, and the cap spike is happening. I don't love that. I would probably, if it were me, I would be willing to hear that out. Defensively, you were about to get to this point. I wonder if you and I agree. Not that concerned. You feel like Heat culture would do enough?
Yeah. I mean, we saw we've seen the evolution from Tyler, and I know that he's younger and he's been willing to do the work. I don't have any reason to doubt that LaVine at 27 wouldn't work or put in the effort to try and improve in that regard. I think he's had the same issue a lot of young players do when they come into the league. A lot of roster turnover in Minnesota, a lot of coaching turnover, and then going to a first time, relatively young, inexperienced coach in Billy Donovan.
You and I have also said this all the time. You come to the Miami Heat immediately, walk in the door, 10% better on defense, right? You're just walk in the door 10. And the other difference with Chicago, their three best players are all not good defenders. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. You come to Miami, all the best players are good defenders. Right. So like I said, Tyler Herro, I don't even take a meeting. Don't even take the phone call. If they ask for him, I hang up and I laugh and I say, good job. Not even non-starter, Tyler Herro off the table for Zach LaVine. But if it's Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, and some little assets here and there, I would at least have the meeting. I'm not saying I would do it. I would have to really look at the cap table. Okay, do we really want to pay Jimmy and Zach LaVine almost $50 million over the next? Is that really those are questions for Pat Riley, Adam Simon, Andy Ellisberg, and Eric Spoelstra to figure out. But that would be, I think, the starting point of any negotiations, and I'm open to it. You put Tyler Herro, Zach LaVine, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, and Bam Adebayo. That's a lot of shooting. That's a fast-paced team. A lot of space for Jimmy and Bam to operate in. Theoretically, I really like it, but again, it depends on what they think of in terms of their ability to flesh out the rest of the back end of the roster, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. But an interesting name.
I think this is like a first, not a first, but I think it's a relatively thing that doesn't happen very often, that we agree that a trade like this could be
for a player that you and I don't really love, which is kind of weird. Like, I like Zach LaVine fine, but I'm not like buying his jersey. I'm not a big Zach LaVine fan. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with it.
Two-time All-Star. Like, even from the peripheral Heat fans' perspective, you hear two-time All-Star, slam dunk champion winner, like a three-point shooter. Like, it's exciting. It's a big move, right? And it also makes sense, though. Like, it makes sense.
He is ideally what you would pair with Bam Adebayo. Put him on the top of the key. Let him run the dribble handoff stuff from the triple threat position, and you've got guys like Tyler Herro or Zach LaVine come, screaming off the dribble handoff and launching threes. That's ideally what you would put with Bam. The LaVine Bam fit is a really smooth one. For some reason, I feel like he ends up on the Knicks. Like R.J. Barrett and a bunch of first-round picks, and they overpay for Zach LaVine. For some reason, I feel like that's what's going to happen, but we'll see.
Despite the Thibodeau friction, maybe. Or potential friction.
I don't know. The Knicks have done weirder things. Coming up, why a small trade that went down today could be a hint as to what the Heat might do before the deadline. Maybe sooner rather than later. That's coming up. First, David, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. As a small business owner or a hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people you have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. I know it can be a challenge. You don't want to waste time sorting through resumes. You want to make sure you bring in the right candidates. Well, guess what? LinkedIn Jobs helps you to solve those problems more quickly, attracting the qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They've got a bunch of skills tests that are perfect for winnowing out the right candidates for your job. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs, and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 and delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your jobs for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We are available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, Monday through Friday. In that same HoopsHype report, Michael Scotto also names Victor Oladipo and Dewayne Dedmon as more realistic players that the Heat could include in trade talks between now and the deadline. Interestingly, we had a trade go down today, David, between the Celtics and the Spurs. It sent Noah Vonleh to San Antonio. The Spurs in the deal waived Gorgie Jang. Basically, a cap-saving move for the Boston Celtics, who are dealing with their own luxury tax issues. The Spurs, who were some amount below the salary cap floor, mumbo-jumbo stuff, were able to facilitate whatever. Vonleh, Jang, both of them are free agents. Why we bring this up now is because...
Wait, was Vonleh going to be waived by the Spurs as well?
He already got waived.
Oh, he was.
Yeah,
So they
he was
traded
waived
him and
immediately.
He was waived immediately. Jang was waived as well. Okay.
Yes, and I'm assuming that Boston sent cash to San Antonio to help facilitate it.
It was
so,
Vonleh and cash consideration. So
all right, great. So cash consideration. So I'm glad you point that out, because that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up. Because again, Scotto naming Oladipo and Dedmon. We'll get to Oladipo here in a minute, but Dedmon, this is the kind of move that I think the Heat could make in order to trade Dewayne Dedmon and potentially open up the cap space to make some minor moves on the fringes. Okay, so I am not smart enough to figure out the CBA and the salary cap and which teams could facilitate this the way that the Spurs were able to facilitate this for the Celtics. But if there is a team out there that is willing to take Dewayne Dedmon and get paid for it, aka cash considerations, Dewayne Dedmon is on a 2-year deal, but next year that deal is fully non-guaranteed. So he's basically a team option essentially, and he's not making $4.7 million or whatever it is next year. He's not seeing that money. He's going to get waived. So that's sort of the deal that he can make. Now all of a sudden you open up what would be $4+ million under the luxury tax threshold. You could use that money to promote Orlando Robinson to the regular contract, to the regular roster. So now you're not worrying about the 23 days, 22 days, whatever it is that he has left on the two-way deal. And then potentially you still have that open roster spot, that 15th spot. You could sign another player to the veteran minimum and have 15 players instead of 14. I think when we're looking at Dewayne Dedmon deals, don't be so focused on who are the Heat getting back, because it could very well be nobody, but it would at least help Miami add some players in free agency.
Yeah, I wonder if, and again, I don't know either. The Spurs capologist, do they have enough room under the cap floor where they could acquire that $4.7
I think they were like
million?
I think Hollinger over at the Athletic had it. They were like $17 or $18 million under the cap floor, so they still have plenty of room.
They could absolutely absorb his contract. And look, Dedmon, a former Spur, I don't think that ended well, but there's the idea wouldn't be to keep him on the roster. They don't want to pay him 4.7 this year, and they certainly don't want to pay him 4.5 the next.
Right.
It seems like a possibility. Vonleh making $3 million less than Dedmon this season, so it's surprising that they would take on a smaller salary that way. But I guess it's what they felt was necessary, at least in terms of maybe they're just putting it out there. They're setting the bar and making other front offices know, hey man, you got a bad contract. We'll be willing to take it on for a couple of cash considerations. So maybe it makes a lot of sense.
We need some money out here in San Antonio for margaritas and fajitas. That's all I know about San Antonio.
Yeah, Oklahoma City has done the same thing over the last couple of seasons, right?
They do it all the time.
They're bad contracts.
I think the Indiana Pacers are under the cap floor too. Again, I don't want to speculate into the CBA and all that capologist stuff. There are teams out there under the cap floor that could facilitate something like this. Which teams they are, I don't know. That's Andy Ellsberg's job to figure out. And this idea of just, hey, we'll pay you to take this bad contract is at least an interesting one. So that's sort of where I'm leaning as to what it is that the Heat could do with Dewayne Dedmon. And again, that opens up something where now you could promote Orlando Robinson.
Have to take back, right? Or would they have to take back anything in consideration?
In the Celtics case, they didn't. The Spurs waived Georgie Jang themselves. So you don't have to take anything back as long as you're trading them in. As long as you're trading them into cap space, you don't have to take anything back.
Yeah, you're right. So, you're right. Sorry, that makes sense.
So yeah, this will open up something for Orlando Robinson potentially. And then look, Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald reporting this week that the Heat are still interested in Jay Crowder, but only in a buyout situation. So like if Jay Crowder were to get bought out, and it doesn't really seem likely to happen, but if hypothetically it were, or by the way, any other player gets bought out after the trade deadline, that could create enough room for the Heat to add that player. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Quickly, the Victor Oladipo thing. He names Victor Oladipo as maybe a realistic player that the Heat can move. He's making $8-ish million right now, player option for next season. He does have veto power over any kind of trade because of the nature of the extension there, the bird right, whatever, 30%, something, blah, blah, blah. Not smart enough CBA-wise. Math. As we know, I'm not good at. Victor Oladipo, trading him. The way that Oladipo has played lately, I just don't know that what you would get back as a matching salary would equal sort of the production and maybe the X factoriness of Victor Oladipo. But that said, who's to say that the Heat aren't at least taking phone calls? But it's an interesting name. And look, these are the two names that you and I have been reporting basically since these contracts have been signed.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Oladipo is a good option to trade. And exactly for what you said, because you're just not going to get back a player that can provide, even in theory, what Oladipo can provide in the future and what he has been able to do up to this point. Like you're seeing high level defense, you're seeing a drive to the basket, you're seeing offensive opportunities, some over willingness perhaps to shoot the ball from long range that you and I would prefer. But that's not to say that, that it's a problem at this point. You're not going to get a player that gives you that combination of skills, experience with the Heat system, comfort in the Heat locker room, et cetera, for that kind of salary. It's just not realistic. And that's why we shot down trades for Max Strus and others. It's all about getting commensurate value. You want to get something of equal or greater value. And at least in terms of fit, like maybe a player in a bad situation elsewhere would come back here and be able to provide greater value. That's not the case. They like Oladipo. They signed him for a reason. They believe in him. They've been patient in his return and his growth and everything else. And I think they're still comfortable at this point, trying to wait and see if he can provide or continue to provide the spark that he has this season. So I just don't see it. And I can also add something quickly about Oladipo. Some people criticizing us for being critical of Oladipo following the Lakers game. Not sure where that criticism came from. I think we've been more than fair about Oladipo, and over the course of his whole Heat tenure, believing in him, thinking that he's going to be the kind of player that can provide a spark. In terms of the Lakers, he wasn't great, and I don't think you can objectively say anything but that. Like his shooting was not great. His defense was solid in some places and bad in others.
We said this after the great games against the Clippers and all that. Look, it's awesome that he looks great, but the nature of these knee injuries is that sometimes it looks good and other times it doesn't. The burst that he had against the Clippers, he didn't have against the Lakers. We predicted, hey, this is not going to just be high times rolling for the rest of the season with Victor Oladipo. Right. There's going to be blips. The Lakers game was a blip. We called it out. That's our job. Quickly, 10 seconds, if that. Is Victor Oladipo enough of a sweetener to make it easier to move Duncan Robinson? You pair those two things, and now you're actually getting a substantial contract back?
For another team, you mean?
For another team to take Duncan Robinson on in order to get Victor Oladipo?
No, he's not.
No, I don't think so either. Not yet. He hasn't proven that. Bam Adebayo did not appear as a top vote getter on All-Star voting first returns. We'll tell you what we plan to do about it next here on Locked On Heat. But first, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net. You're still your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball, of course. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. I've got to ask, Wes, can the Dolphins pull it off this weekend?
It's the Jets. I don't know who's playing quarterback yet. They better. I still have hope. I'm hopeless.
All right, you're wrong. They're going to lose. It's the Dolphins. Sorry, I hate to break it to you. That's just who they've been for the past 3 decades. If you love sports podcasts, and you can even find those at BetOnline as well, we're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Locked On Heat is on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Follow us there. Email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. NBA All-Star voting first returns came out Thursday, which is always a great way to piss a whole bunch of people off. Among the weird stuff, like Austin Reeves getting a ton of votes, Derrick Rose continuing his streak of ending up in the top 10 of voting despite barely ever playing. Bam Adebayo, our Bam Adebayo, not among the top 10 vote getters in the front court in the Eastern Conference. Here's who's in front of him, David. Kevin Durant, Giannis, Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum. Those make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, Jimmy Butler, weird, but I'm okay with it. Pascal Siakam deserves it, absolutely. All NBA kind of guy. Then it gets funky.
Dark, twisted, yeah.
Kyle Kuzma, Paolo Banchero, who is awesome. No complaints about Paolo, but not Bam level. Nick Claxton, who I like, but again, not Bam. And then Jared Allen, Nick Claxton, solid player, but not an all-star. Just sort of like the center on the Brooklyn Nets. The only doing his job, not an all-star. Okay, and then Jared Allen, again, I like Jared Allen a lot. He is not Bam Adebayo. This is unacceptable. So we're going to start a new campaign. We're calling it Bam the Vote. # Bam the Vote. Bam Adebayo deserves this. Okay, he's been an all-star only one time in his whole career. 3 years ago, he was averaging 15.9 points in a pandemic year. That was the last time he made it. He's missed it the last 2 seasons with better numbers than he had that season. Here's the list of players who have gotten in over Bam Adebayo since Bam last made the All-Star team. Julius Randle, Nikola Vucevic, Ben Simmons, Domantas Sabonis before we all agreed he was awesome in Sacramento, LaMelo Ball as an injury replacement, but still, Jared Allen, again, I like, but not Bam Adebayo. Bam this year averaging 21.8 points per game, 9.9 rebounds, and 3.2 assists. Here's the list of players in the entire league with those kinds of numbers. Embiid, Giannis, Jokic, 3 MVP candidates, and then Julius Randle, who's actually having a nice season, but he stinks. So that doesn't count. We're not counting that. Bam plays better defense than Julius Randle, but he's
what happened to your timeshare on Randall Island? Because you used to be like the loudest supporter.
I'm Airbnb-ing it out right now. I still actually have it, but right now I'm Airbnb-ing it out and I'm staying at the Bam house. Okay, I'm staying at the Bam the Vote household. Bam Adebayo, 30 points in 3 straight games. Okay. What he is doing has been unbelievable, and he's doing it defensively in the way that Julius Randle isn't doing it, and really many players in the NBA are doing it. You said recently, David, that he's the 3rd best center in the league. The 3rd best center in the league ought to be on the All-Star team, and he ought to be in the top 10 of voting in the front court in the Eastern Conference. That much is for sure. He should be an All-Star. You're telling me Kyle Kuzma deserves more votes right now than Bam Adebayo? Look, I got an email this morning from some random PR firm or something that said, and I don't even know how true this is, but it said it in the email, that the Miami Heat are the 2nd most Googled NBA franchise in the world, behind only the Warriors.
Impossible.
David, I got it in an email. So all you Googlers, all you tweeters, all you Redditors, all you interneters, Bam the Vote, hashtag Bam the Vote, vote for Bam Adebayo as an All-Star. I understand that First Returns is basically just serves as a reminder that All-Star voting is actually happening. So now that you're reminded, go out there and vote for Bam Adebayo. Jimmy Butler might make it anyway, just with the coaches. Coaches love Jimmy Butler, right? He might get in as a reserve. Bam Adebayo needs this. He needs your votes. He needs the fan support. He is very actively wanting to be an All-Star. So is Tyler Herro, by the way. But Bam deserves it. When you look at this list of other guys, when you look at Kyle Kuzma, you're going to let him get beat by Kyle Kuzma and Nick Claxton. We cannot have it. Bam the Vote, Bam the Vote, Bam the Vote.
Impassioned delivery there. Strong case. Look, I know why he hasn't gotten those votes, right? Not a lot of national media, not a lot of nationally televised games.
No, that's not why it is.
Mediocre
Heat
record.
Heat fans need to do it. Heat fans need to do it. Heat fans know what Bam's about.
I know Eric Reed and the Bally's broadcast love pointing out that random guy with a Jimmy Butler jersey in Minnesota or whatever, but I don't know that Heat Nation is as strong and invested. Look, we see the response to a Lakers loss, and that's unfortunate that all of a sudden whatever faith, as little as it might have been, gets completely obliterated by a tough loss, and next thing you know
what happened in that loss, David?
Like this. I'm sorry?
You know what happened in that loss, David? Bam Adebayo scored 30-plus points. Again, I'm with you.
You're not arguing with me.
No, I know. You are in it. You are putting the challenge out there. They need to be more passionate. They need to be doing this because we know how much they care about the Heat winning as a collective. When the Heat win, there is no fan base that enjoys their team winning more than Heat fans. When the Heat win, they eat that up. The Heat are a game over 500. I get it. But if you want Bam Adebayo to have the national recognition, if you want Bam to have that national recognition, vote him into the All-Star game. That's how you get there, right? That's how you do it. This weird pandemic All-Star, nobody cares about that one. Bam Adebayo has to have a legitimate All-Star appearance, and people will start to recognize him nationally. This is what it takes.
You're coming at this wrong. You're trying to appeal to a Heat fan's sense of pride in their superstar player, Bam Adebayo. You need to come at them with spite, baby. This is to piss off Los Angeles. This is to piss off Joel Embiid's flopping ass. This is to piss off 29 other fan bases. This is what gets the Heat fan base fired up. It's out of spite. They don't believe in you. They think you leave late and leave early and get there late. They don't care about you in Indiana, even though they have the same crowd issues. They don't think that you show up. They don't think you buy jerseys, even though it's routinely the number one selling jersey around the NBA. They don't believe in Heat fans and Heat nations. Even today, the rumors or whatever, the reports from Mike Scotto, the comments are like, oh, the Heat are always involved in the alleged trades, et cetera. They don't care about the Heat fan base at all. You're being disrespected. You're going to let them get away with that? Solve the problem. Vote Bam Adebayo. Bam the vote. He deserves it.
Bam the vote. Bam the vote. Bam the vote. Hashtag Bam the vote. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up. We will be back here next Monday. Now make your second listen Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. David, what do we say around these parts? Bam the vote.
Bam the vote, yeah. Do it for Tyler Herro. Kyle Kuzma can't get in. Do it for Tyler.
Tyler the vote. Bam the vote.